Good morning, distinguished guests, dear colleagues, friends, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Vytautas Magnus University. Welcome to the feature conference of the Global Media and Information Literacy Week 2018. It is a great honor and a great privilege for us to join the global community of scholars, practitioners, media and information literacy enthusiasts in the worldwide acknowledgement and celebration of ideas that surround all the central principles of democratic well-being, such as freedom, pluralism, and equality. Every generation has to face its own challenges. For the 21st century, the media and information appear to be playing the key role, offering the humanity with the greatest opportunities, but also confronting us with the great societal transformations. Most countries have globally experienced and lived through numerous changes, such as variation in the standards of income per capita, technology innovations, income inequality, and also the extent of fluctuations in daily democracy practices in the course of just one last decade. These challenges are not only noticed, studied and explored, but these are greatly felt also in the academic institutions. It has been the goal of diverse disciplines: economics, history, demography, sociology, political science, to comment on societal transformations, assess their causes, describe their consequences, and suggest further societal development scenarios. Though historically universities and academia in general were established and underwent changes pursuing the task of giving insights into how our societies are changing, the life in contemporary world requires much more. It requires not only new knowledge and ideas, but also asks for new abilities, competencies, and responsibilities. Therefore, transformation of such scales requires joint efforts of all educational sectors. Not only it should take place in universities, but also primary, secondary schools as well. There are alarming trends that can be noticed in some countries around the world, pointing to the collapse of education, as schools are not able to teach reading and writing. Some scholars have coined the term lost generation, referring to the cultural literacy, when reading more complex text is no longer considered as interesting, and thinking and analyzing are perceived as waste of time or compared to suffering. In terms of culture, it is very important to make sure that certain elements of the past remains relevant in the present. Otherwise, we will lose the narratives that have created our civilizations, like Shakespeare, the Cervantes, and Chakchouk, to name just a few, leaving us with young generations unable to comprehend what great things they have lost. Instead, people are captivated by screaming headlines, short-lived scandals, and fake news, which in fact is not a new phenomenon. Fake news has existed as long as did the truth. This is why Romeo and Juliet died. And this is why Mark Twain had to announce that the reports of his death are greatly exaggerated. Yet today, considering the scale of this global noise and competition for attention, education and critical thinking are of the utmost importance, teaching people not to accept everything they see or hear as undeniable truth. In this place, it is worth mentioning that Vytautas Magnus University is an institution that builds its identity around liberal arts education and how its values allow it to address the issues of the global world. Re-established in 1989 as part of the movement to regain Lithuanian independence, our university keeps itself open to the world, encourages tolerance, and tries to maintain excellence in the quality of studies and research, highly respects and in its activities foresees ideals of advancing mutual understanding between nations, cultures, and generations, aims at raising public awareness, engagement, and commitment to the matters of global significance. This has been the aim of Vytautas Magnus University when it was re-established at the dawn of our country's second independence 3 decades ago. We are happy to say openly that our commitment to adhere to these ideals has not changed, but remains even stronger today. At Vytautas Magnus University, we are bravely approaching all these calls, and the Global Future Conference is an excellent platform for these challenging and inspiring aspirations. And to conclude, allow me to say a few more words. No such changes and processes work in isolation. We need to be surrounded by an environment that welcomes innovation, initiatives, and bottom-up participation in the creation of our spaces, both private and public. In our cities and communities, we need to promote the plurality of voices, creativity, diversity, and understanding that we can change our neighborhoods, cities, and public spaces because they belong to all of us. And here in Kaunas, you are also witnessing a magnificent transformation. It is also deeper than the pavement to be changed in our iconic pedestrian street, which we call Freedom Avenue. Kaunas is to be the European capital of culture in 2022. So it is very symbolic to speak here today about voices, powers, and change makers, as we need to find ways to combine our exciting history, promote inclusive community, and development of city in a way that would react to the new reality, but would not result in losing its face. And we see this conference as a way to inspire also us, residents of Kaunas, as we call ourselves Kaunians. Thank you. And now I would like to invite our honorable guests for their introductory remarks to take their seats on the stage. So please join me in welcoming Professor Juozas Augutis, Rector of Vytautas Magnus University. Mr. Moez Chakchouk, UNESCO Assistant Director General for Communication and Information. Mr. Patrick Pennings, Head of Information Society Department at Council of Europe, representative of the Deputy Secretary General. Ms. Annie Helmel, representative of DG Connect, Deputy Director General, and also Head of Unit I4, European Commission. And also Her Excellency, Madame Irena Vaišvilaitė, Lithuanian Ambassador to UNESCO. So it is my great honor and pleasure to give a floor to the distinguished guests joining us today in this solemn opening ceremony. But just a moment, I will need to say that while His Excellency President Valdas Adamkus, who is also chairman of the Council of Vytautas Magnus University, and UNESCO Goodwill Ambassador to the construction of Knowledge Society, is not able to join us today. So he sends his greetings and also welcoming statement, which I will share now with you in a moment. Statement of His Excellency President Valdas Adamkus, UNESCO Goodwill Ambassador for the Construction of Knowledge Societies. Madam Chair of the Conference, Mr. UNESCO Assistant Director General for Communication and Information, Your Magnificence, Rector of Vytautas Magnus University, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. It is a great privilege and honor for Vytautas Magnus University and Lithuania to be hosting the feature conference of the Global Media and Information Literacy Week, which celebrates media and information literacy and intercultural dialogue with the aim to innovate cities while revitalizing global, regional, and local partnerships for sustainable development and informed citizenry in inclusive and sustainable knowledge societies. The main events of this week, a two-day feature conference in Kaunas and Youth Forum in Riga, are also celebrating an important milestone, the 100 years anniversary of independence of three Baltic states, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. Significant political nuances must be considered, as from 1945 to 1940, three Baltic countries were removed from the geopolitical map and became part of the Soviet Empire with its totally controlled and ritualized public sphere. A positive picture of the totalitarian regime was carefully manufactured and published in the media, which played a critical role in dividing the world into black and white, into ours and theirs. After the fall of the Berlin Wall and the collapse of the Soviet Union, the Baltic countries experienced their determination to seek the EU and NATO memberships. The more affluent EU and NATO became an important source of inspiration and support for the post-communist transition and long-term political and economic transformations. In 2004, 10 countries of Central and Eastern Europe, including Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia, became the EU member states. As a result of European integration, many legal acts have been accepted and implemented into the national legislation in the field of democracy and human rights. In case of MIL, the time countries joined the EU reflects the scope of harmonization of public policies with the international standards. Media literacy, based on democratic values of participation and critical thinking, becomes then crucial to support democratic culture, improve media quality, and promote professional journalism. Ladies and gentlemen, democracy and its fundamental rights, pluralism, justice, human rights, are under threat globally. For new democracies, these challenges are even stronger to resist external and internal pressures, those of political, economic, and technological nature. The last few decades have been extremely important in the region of Central and Eastern Europe, including the Baltic countries, because of fundamental social, political, economic, and media transformations and democratization processes that took place in the region. Democracy needs strong citizen support and involvement. Reflective and engaged citizenry requires better balanced information from a plurality of sources. Educational interventions are needed to empower young people and adults to deal with opportunities and risks that today's world is offering. News media and information literacy should be considered as an answer to the increasing demand for active and informed citizenship, appreciation of journalism and democracy. I thank you for your attention. This was the message of His Excellency, and now I would like to invite our Rector, Professor Juozas Augutis, to say his greeting message.
Your Excellencies, dear ladies and gentlemen, dear friends and guests of Vytautas Magnus University, dear global community of media and information literacy, scholars and experts. It is a great pleasure for me to see you in Vytautas Magnus University on such a great occasion. It brings me great joy that together with the University of Latvia in Riga and UNESCO, we can welcome you in this important conference. Conversation about media, its impact on democratic processes, how it transforms the societies, is a difficult yet a necessary discussion. And the university is a great place to do it. The digital world is becoming broader, and we need to understand how the processes work, understand this new reality, and not to get lost in the sea of the information, nor fall victims for manipulations and separate what is intelligent from what is simply interesting. And while we need to adapt the changes, how we teach and what we teach, there are three principles that are universal. It's a good understanding of historical, cultural, and philosophical context. Now it's time to repeat again how significant is a universal education that encourages openness and why liberal arts education is as important as ever. We need to provide our students with the knowledge of philosophy, psychology, sociology, and other fields uncovering the tendencies of the relationship among people and global processes. Such knowledge will help them to solve moral dilemmas and challenge stereotypes. Only a well-educated, open to the world, and critically thinking person can resist manipulations, look deep into the issues, evaluate the context, and make their own judgments and decisions. We need to place emphasis on the challenges awaiting our and the future generations, and on the importance of communication and mutual understanding. It might seem that technological processes has connected the world into a tight network. There is still plenty of room left for miscommunication. For this reason, in the contemporary world, education gains great importance, and the ideas of today's intellectuals could help to harmonize the general view of this fragmented world. Dear friends and colleagues, I am deeply touched by grand projects and ideas developed by UNESCO. It also brings me great joy to make me proud that this year our university has also joined the global network of UNESCO chains in media and information literature. We value it as a sign appreciation of our promotion of ideas related to media freedom, professionalism, and media education. Thank you very much for this. In the end, I would like to wish all of you great success in your visions and academical aims. Thank you very much, and good luck.
Thank you, Rector. And now I would like to invite Mr. Moez Chakchouk, UNESCO Assistant Director General for Communication and Information. And I'm extremely happy because Mr. Chakchouk is visiting our region for the first time, so it should be an exciting moment. So please.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. For sure, it's my first time to be here in this region, and I'm very, very pleased to discover this region and this country and this beautiful city. It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure today to address this conference because it's a very important day. It's not just day number 1 for MIL Week, Media Information Literacy Week, but it's also a special day for United Nations family. The 24th is the birth of the United Nations. So today is also a big day for us and to stand for human rights, and also it's hashtag UN Day, in addition to our MIL conference. So, His Excellency, I want to mention him because it's very important. His Excellency President, Mr. Valdas Adamkus, UNESCO Goodwill Ambassador for the Construction of Knowledge Societies, Mr. Juozas Augutis, Rector of Vytautas Magnus University, I hope that tell it well, and my friend, Ms. Ambassador Irena Vashvilaitė, Ambassador Permanent Delegate for the Republic of Lithuania to UNESCO, Mr. Patrick Penninckx, Head of Information Society, Department of the Council of Europe and representative of the Deputy Secretary General, Ms. Anne Hellman, Deputy Head of the Media Convergence and Social Media Unit at the European Commission and representative of Mr. Khalil Rouhana, the Deputy Director General of the Director General DG Connect, chair of this opening session. Thank you very much. Ms. Ineta Dapshinikskene, Vice Director of International Relations of the Vytautas Magnus University, Excellencies, members of the UNESCO UN Alliance for Civilizations International University Network on MIL and Intercultural Dialogue, members of the UNESCO-led Global Alliance of Partnerships of Media and Information Literacy, other partners, researchers, experts, civil society representatives. We are all together here to engage, and this is very important for us. Ladies and gentlemen, let me, the very outset, thank the co-host of the Global MIL Week feature events in the true spirit of the cooperation, a raison d'être of UNESCO. Our Baltic partners have succeeded in sharing the events here in Lithuania and then in Latvia with the support from a neighboring country, Estonia, and UNESCO is really grateful to the Vytautas Magnus University and the University of Latvia for embracing and sharing UNESCO's vision to pursue media and information literacy for all. We salute also Mr. Gunnar Spurava, the UNESCO Latvian MIL Chair, Ms. Auksė Balčytienė, and Ms. Kristina Juhariti, the UNESCO Lithuanian MIL Chair for Inclusive Knowledge Society. There are many others to thank, of course, but time doesn't permit to applaud all of them. So please, you can see here all our partners, and this is very important. It's a very important slide for us because we count on them. We are here today because of them, and thank you very much. This feature event, the 8th International Media and Information Literacy and Intercultural Dialogue Conference and the Youth Agenda Forum are 2 of scores of events, both offline and online, that are taking place around the world to celebrate MIL Week 2019. You can see the number of events in the map, and this is very important to increase the numbers. We stand in solidarity for a common cause that everyone needs MIL competencies. Media and information literacy is literacy for life in the digital age. This is my second time in 2 weeks addressing a large audience on the topic of media and information literacy. The first was to high-level government representatives and policymakers at the 205 session of the UNESCO Executive Board. The decision-making body of UNESCO recommended the proclamation of a global week of media and information literacy to be observed from the 24th until the 31st of October each year. This demonstrates the support and the interest of member states, including Lithuania, who supported very well this week, in media and information literacy. Of course, the member states, Latvia and Lithuania, have long pledged their support to MIL through their financial support to the International Programme for the Development of Communication, IPDC, along with this very conference day. Empirical evidence is emerging that stakeholders must, ladies and gentlemen, fans of UNESCO, media and information literacy is essential to today's world and into the future, as it enables all individuals to acquire the skills needed to critically evaluate, use, and contribute to information and media content, including social media. These skills are essential to face the contemporary challenges of misinformation, hate speech, and violent extremism. They are equally important for building inclusive societies and achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. AMIL supports people's engagement in freedom of expression and the safety of journalists. AMIL stimulates access to and the prudent use of information. AMIL contributes to the quality education, including global citizenship education. Achieving the ideals of AMIL requires all of us to identify and tackle the barriers to AMIL development. There are many challenges, as you can see on the screen slide, but at the same time, I wish to highlight 3 here. First, empirical evidence is emerging that stakeholders must integrate information, media, and technological competencies to realize the greatest impact on AMIL on society. We have more work to do in this area. Second, policymakers and other actors can no longer continue with the assumption that AMIL is already covered in existing school-based education curricula, and that it is adequate to inject this into the school system. UNESCO continues to accompany member states in advancing their national AMIL policies and strategies in order to integrate AMIL in formal, informal, and non-formal education at all education levels, including lifelong learning. Thirdly, we must help policymakers understand the application of AMIL to overall development, especially in the context of the Sustainable Development Goals and challenges such as disinformation. Through our combined efforts, we can take AMIL to the next level. I therefore urge the moderators, speakers, all participants and partners here and around the globe to combine our knowledge and experience as we deliberate and act upon the far-reaching theme of this year, celebrating of Global AMIL Week, AMIL Cities, Voices, Power, and Change Makers. And among a few, there are a lot of change makers, including the youth generation. Cities around the world are benefiting from the digital revolution, increased information about transportations, healthcare, entertainment, news, the private sector, civil society, and government has increased efficiency. These benefits are being magnified with the development of artificial intelligence, which is likely to propel smart cities and humanity into a new era. Yes, we also recognize the associated challenges around information ethics, so security, cybersecurity, and upholding human rights. And this is where this concept of AMIL cities become even more relevant. Smart cities supported by artificial intelligence are media and information literate cities. Smart cities require smart, well-informed inhabitants, and AMIL is the key to fostering smart citizens in sustainable and inclusive cities. In closing, I would like to underline 3 points in order for us to move forward on AMIL. UNESCO and its partners look forward to the adoption of the global framework for AMIL cities and key recommendations on this innovative approach to expand AMIL learning. We should highlight the power of AMIL as critical engagement for sustainable development with youth as a key engine. UNESCO is pleased that we have not only succeeded in preserving the Global AMIL Week Youth Forum as a youth-specific action, but that we can also see the participation of young people here today. Partnerships are crucial. Let us together reinvigorate the UNESCO-led Global Alliance for Partnerships on AMIL, GAPMIL, and sustain the UNESCO United Nations Alliance for Civilization International University Network on AMIL. We have achieved much with volunteering and scarce resources, so let's keep it. AMIL is a flagship program for UNESCO and for CI sector, for communication and information sector especially. The organization is committed to continuing its leadership in stimulating media and information literacy societies globally. I invite you to visit our website to see more about our comprehensive actions at the international, regional, and national levels. Finally, I would like to reiterate that UNESCO is grateful for the long-standing cooperation it has developed with other international organizations such as the European Commission, the Swedish International Development Cooperation Agency, the Council of Europe, the United Nations Alliance of Civilizations, and other bilateral partners such as Japan, who have given their support to UNESCO AMIAL's program and, of course, encourage us to do more. The demand for AMIAL has grown, and further voluntary contributions are welcome to continue strengthening our work. And to this end, I would like to offer my sincere gratitude to Latvia, who has recently pledged a new contribution to UNESCO's International Program for the Development of Communication, IPDC, special account. Similarly to Lithuania, has been contributing to the IPDC for the past 3 years, particularly in support of the Open Talks by IPDC. It was held in Tunisia. I was there, my country. And these contributions enable the important work of the IPDC and the promotion of media and information literacy to be particularly effective. So let us take AMIAL to the cities. Let's make all our work valuable for everywhere in the country, to the countryside, to the schools, to the colleges, factories, farms, offices, and homes. Let us take AMIAL to the world, and the world into a knowledge-rich future. This is the way that we need to engage, and everyone needs to be part of the change. In this spirit, I wish us successful deliberations, and I thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chakchouk. And now it's my pleasure and great honor also to invite Patrick Pennings, the representative of European Council of Europe. So please, the floor is yours.
Driving into Kaunas yesterday reminded me a bit of coming into the Industrial Revolution, because so many factories and so many fuming chimneys. And it reminded me of the enormous impact the Industrial Revolution has had on our societies. It was not a one-off event. It was a period of change. Longer waves of introducing new technologies into our societies, which became from an agricultural society to industrial societies. And the process is still ongoing. It's not finished. It's not as if now that we're entering a new age, that the industrial age is gone. It's still there. That had an enormous impact, visually impact, on people's lives. They were living the change because they moved from agricultural areas to industries, to cities where there was gatherings of major plants and networks. It reminded me that our current digital revolution is probably far more insidious. It's probably far more discreet. It creeps into our lives without us necessarily noticing it. We use it when we use our smartphones. I don't think there's anyone in this room that is not using a smartphone. And I hope to distract you from your smartphone with speaking. Insidious, discreet, but omnipresent. And that is what we are facing today. That is this discrete development that is majorly, in majority, changing our lives without us realizing it. And that makes the first challenge, I think, for media literacy, is that we're all using those tools in one way or another without necessarily having the full background to it. And that, I think, we need to first tackle. That is, that we need to realize that the impact on our lives, on our democratic structures, on our education systems is so fundamental that it provides us with a real paradigm shift. Unfortunately, we're not ready for that paradigm shift. I know you're all convinced persons that are in charge from a voluntary basis or an academic basis or governmental basis to engage in media literacy, media and information literacy. At the same time, we also realize that these changes, unfortunately, are too little impacting the way we structure our societies and the response that we provide to it. Our educational system, unfortunately, despite all good academic efforts, is still focused at best at the 20th century model. We're still preparing our children for the 20th century. Hello? We are facing new challenges. We need to be able to respond to them, and we need to be able to respond to them now. I'd like to start with a quote, and that's where I make the link between the United Nations and the Council of Europe, of a person I had an enormous privilege to meet, which was Kofi Annan, the former Secretary General of the United Nations, who said, "Literacy is a bridge from misery to hope. It is a bulwark against poverty and a building block of development, a platform for democratization and a vehicle for the promotion of cultural and national identity. Literacy is, finally, the road to human progress and the means through which every man, woman and child can realize his or her full potential." Now, media literacy has a different connotation when he spoke those words and today. Even if this was only 10 or 15 years ago, media literacy becomes a completely new issue. We are facing a completely new mindset. Literacy implies today the mastery of contemporary tools of communications as a means of expression and understanding, previously known in English as the 3 R's, reading, writing, and arithmetic. The R's are not necessarily in the first letter of the words I'm using. But when we use digital tools and platforms to express ourselves, their very power, speed, and instantaneity of dissemination turn literacy into a multi-layered concept that many of us continue to grapple with. Let's face it. I'm in charge of Information Society in the Council of Europe. I can tell you, I grapple with it. Photos, videos, limited character messages, emoticons, and podcasts have become languages in their own right through tools like Instagram, Snapchat, Vine, and Periscope. And interaction and real communication are only too often a faceless, electronically mediated process. Medicated maybe as well. This is especially the case for young people who text, tweet, play electronic games, and exchange images night and day in the online world, which is woven and blurred into what adults still refer to as the real world. The virtual world is also the real world. Social and cultural conventions are upturned as social media users friend and unfriend people they will probably never meet from the other side of the world. Relationships are increasingly being created online as business partners meet and create companies through the internet, and increasingly it is becoming the place where people first encounter their life partners. These deep changes have placed responsibility and accountability at the heart of the core set of literacy skills, necessitating a solid understanding of our own fundamental human rights and respect of the rights of others if we are to avoid the pitfalls and contribute positively to today's societies. I would like to remind you of 3 things the Council of Europe has been doing in this respect. First of all, we have elaborated a very handy media literacy handbook that is to be used by policymakers, NGOs, teachers, And of course, that has to be done in cooperation with all our partners from UNESCO, from the European Union, but also all international partners, NGOs that we work with. It is incredibly important that not only the formal education systems, but also the informal education systems are made aware and are coming to the level that they can be integrated in these developments. A second is that we need policy-making instruments. We still do. It's not because once a committee of ministers or a council of ministers has decided something that the implementation is going to be there. This year, we adopted the rights of the child in the digital age, an important instrument, but it remains to be seen how that is really going to impact the lives of the children that we are intending to face and intending to work with in this context. Third is this legal framework in all of its aspects. In all of the decisions we are taking, there is a digital dimension. There is a literacy dimension in it. And we have to ensure that this is becoming part of the mindset of all of our policymakers. I have no need to convince you of this. I think gatherings like these are usually of the convinced. And we do not need to convert the convinced, right? However, I think what is important is that the expertise that is gathered in this room, the expertise that you will share over the coming days, that is what is needed to bring things forward. You know, when I see images of crumbling icebergs, I'm not so convinced that people will ultimately change their personal behavior in terms of ecological behavior. We need to find ways to ensure that what we preach and what we convey as a message, us, each and individual here personally, takes home and is capable of transforming our own environments in order to be able to respond to those new challenges. So my key message is, policymakers is one thing. The key persons in this room is yourselves. And we have to question, each and every one of us, to see what is our role in this digital revolution. And with this message, I would like to send you home. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pennings, for your great remarks and key suggestions and messages. And now I would like to invite Ms. Annie Hellman, representative of DG Connect Deputy Director General and also head of Unit I for European Commission. Thank you.
Okay, hello everybody. On behalf of the European Commission, I wish to thank UNESCO for inviting us here, inviting me to speak in this starting session, and that we hope is a good new beginning of collaboration with UNESCO on areas like the Media Literacy Week. We are becoming more and more active on media literacy ourselves. Having listened to the previous speakers, I try not to repeat what has already been said, but one thing which is important, which we have seen in this field, we have for 1 year now been intensively working on how to tackle disinformation, which obviously as a goal is rather impossible. And in that in that work, whatever we have done, with whoever we have been speaking, media literacy has always come up as the key point, the key means to fight this problem. We didn't expect that because our background is research and innovation, and we were looking forward to having wonderful IT tools and stuff like that. However, I believe the IT tools will help media literacy also. Now, as a background, what has a bit already been said, But nevertheless, I think it's important, so I'll repeat a bit. The thing is that my generation, we have learned that what is in our books, what we read, is true. And we were taught to read, and then as we had learned to read, we read books and we learned them by heart, etc. And I think it's rather tragic that the children of today, first we teach them to read, and then we teach them to say that, well, what you read may not be true. And I think that's really a key message in this media literacy challenge. How do we deal with that? How do we make reading essential and learning and information essential, while at the same time we are saying that, well, you know, just be careful, it might not be true. I think that is really quite important. Why it is so difficult now is, of course, the social media, the online world, which has made everything different. And the kind of crucial thing which our media, our traditional media, is also facing there is that when we read our newspapers or we read our books, we knew that, well, this book is a great book and it's reliable, it's published by this and that, or this newspaper is the newspaper that I know has some quality journalism in it. Now we see fragments. The news sphere has fragmented online. And when we see that fragment there, who gives us the framework and who gives the young person reading it the framework that this piece of news may be correct or maybe not? And with this problem we have at the same time the other problem that we have so much less time. Before we would, we are already now, we are saying that you should analyze, you should see what the source is of that news and so on, but people don't do that because our time span is so short. We look at the headlines and the main messages, and from that we should somehow be able to tell these people who are busy that still, how do you find out that it's true when you don't have the time for it? So we have a very difficult problem. But it's clear that media literacy has to become digital also. That's the only way to tackle these challenges. Why we are so interested in media literacy now is that 1 year ago we got this kind of task that, can you see what you can do about disinformation? And as I said, media literacy came up there in many areas, in everywhere. We had a set of stakeholder consultations, we had member state workshops, a public consultation for European citizens, and a Eurobarometer. And all of these concluded in setting up a high-level expert group, which wrote a report on what should be done about disinformation online. And with all this massive amount of information, which shared with quite a good amount of kind of understanding of what the problem is and what people feel about it, we drafted a communication on tackling online disinformation. This communication indicates self-regulatory measures, so we don't believe that any of these problems and disinformation can be solved by regulating and saying that this is how must be done, because how would we differentiate what is fake and what is true? If somebody posts something not understanding that is not true, that is kind of okay. But then if somebody posts something with an intent to harm other people, this is a very fuzzy area. But we hope that these self-regulatory measures will work. As the communication was published in April, we have already the first news on that. The social media giants, Google, Facebook, Twitter, as well as main advertising companies, have drafted a code of practice, which was published on the 26th of September. And that code of practice describes various measures of how they try to identify online disinformation, sources that are clearly impersonating reliable sources and clearly causing harm. So this work is ongoing. At the same time, we are working together with fact-checkers, trying to create a collaboration of fact-checkers in Europe. All of this is very important and timely now because of the European elections of the European Parliament. And we do hope that our democracy will not be at stake because of people posting information online which is not true, and our citizens not being, may I say, media literate enough to recognize when it is true and when it is not, and when it's relevant and when not. So this is a vast field of work, and we will continue working on it. And I don't think that work is going to be seen to end very soon. We are working together also with these social media actors on media literacy. As you probably all know, Google and Facebook and Wikipedia all have their media literacy activities, which we appreciate, and we encourage them to work on that. On this communication, one of the issues on media literacy that came up especially was to organize a European Media Literacy Week. We are working on that now, and I have to congratulate UNESCO because we are starting to see the massive amount of work it entails, and we do hope that we will intensify working together with UNESCO in the future, maybe joining forces on the Media Literacy Weeks, or at least we will be sure to contribute both ways, and that is something that we are looking forward to. So there's a lot of work ongoing. What is interesting is that now, due to the disinformation challenge, it has kind of led to a new raise of media literacy in the Commission also, and in the European Commission. And that means also that we will have more funding in the future. We will have more possibilities. And I really believe that the key is collaborating with our member states, with the citizens, and it has to be a bottom-up process where we together find solutions. Ideally, if a member state in Europe, for example, or anywhere, a country, an organization has a great solution, we shouldn't reinvent that wheel, but we should do all our best to share it, to translate it to necessary languages, and to work together on that. So that's what we are going to be working on in the future, and we look forward to collaborating with all possible sources such as UNESCO, and I wish a very nice Media Literacy Week, or Media and Information Literacy Week.
Thank you, Madam Hellman. And now it is my great privilege and honor to invite Her Excellency Ambassador, Lithuanian Ambassador to UNESCO, Irena Vaišvilaitė. So, please.
Good morning to everyone. Well, actually, we're already leaving morning towards midday. First of all, allow me to congratulate Kaunas Vytautas Magnus University in person of Reverend Rector on hosting this event that actually follows very closely receiving the chair of UNESCO for communication and information. It's probably the record time between getting the status of chair that university really eagerly was seeking for, and hosting such a big event that would be impossible without UNESCO. Without UNESCO initiative, without UNESCO network, without UNESCO direct involvement and participation. And so I welcome with big joy ADG Reverend Chakchouk and his team present here, and all those of you who are coming to this region first time because of UNESCO. And because of your interest of course, in media and information and literacy. There was, previous speakers gave great insights and remarks and information on the matter of this conference. I am Lithuania's representative to UNESCO. That is big honor and big challenge. And I think it's a good place here just to state that Lithuania is very interested in being in UNESCO and in UNESCO being in Lithuania, what we experience all here because as I said, without UNESCO, this event probably would not be possible or would not be as international, as multilateral as it's going to be. To me, it's also very personal because I was in this precisely hall when Vytautas Magnus University was recreated. I remember how this hall looked then. It was just, Lithuania was not even, in fact, independent. It was before international recognition of Lithuania's independence. So I remember very well, because of my age, that isolated, first of all, isolated, restricted, ideologically oppressed society. And for those who coming to this region first time, you actually coming in space that was colonial and post-colonial. We're coming out of post-colonial reality. I think we already came. There's something that is dragging behind us. So the transition time since 1990-91, I have an outer memory. I was in New York when 3 flags of Baltic states, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, went up in the headquarters of United Nations in New York. It was very emotional, it was symbolic, it was the beginning of the road that we took on, and next year Lithuania joined UNESCO in '92. We became member, we're one of the youngest members, together with mostly ex-Soviet states and some states of ex-Yugoslavia. But also in almost 1 year and a half, Lithuania, together with another 2 Baltic states, inscribed in UNESCO World Heritage List old town areas of capitals of those states, Vilnius, Riga, and Tallinn. And since then, for many Lithuanians, especially of older generation, UNESCO, first of all, is heritage. Also because of heritage problems and so on. So guess what? The sector of communication and information is the youngest sector of UNESCO. The largest sector is education, and first law on education in Lithuania was written by UNESCO experts. So UNESCO contributed immediately and very directly to development of areas of science, of education, and now internationally looking from our policies and politics, I even would say, Lithuania is very engaged, as ADG noticed and educated, exactly with communication and information sector. We tend to contribute, financially, but also with our experts, with our engagement in documents, in direction of communication and information questions, in area of literacy is here, but also in area of freedom, of access to information, of fighting against disinformation as political act, and so on. So I would like to conclude also with political, maybe, message or statement. The chair of communication of Vytautas Magnus University makes part of the faculty of the department, saying otherwise, of political sciences. And so I believe we also have students of political sciences somehow here in this hall. The debate that goes on in Lithuania exactly, but also in many countries of Europe and not only Europe, is about value of open and multilateral world. And also about meaning, keeping up and reforming, adjusting to also 21st century and to the centuries to come of our international system, of United Nations system. And we have voices quite strong that speaks for unilateralism, what is also for isolation, for cutting yourself off for your own good out of international system. It happens in big countries, it happens in small countries. But I could say, as representative of small country, looking at audience that we have here and at people that will be interacting here, there's no countries that would suffer from this isolation as badly as small and medium countries. And that's the issue, looking. So conference like this would not be possible, remembering that time when Vytautas Magnus University was being recreated, actually with big help of Lithuanian exile diaspora community then. I greet you all here in this multilateral international event of UNESCO that is present in Lithuania and is expression of Lithuania's presence in UNESCO. And I wish to all of you and to everyone good experience, productive talks, productive inspiration, and all the best. Thank you.
I would like to take a moment to thank all the guests, honorable guests, for their introductory remarks, their key messages, suggestions, and also invitations. All those topics will be discussed during those 3 days of the conference, but still the morning session is not over because few announcements will follow. And for that, I would like to invite on the stage Ms. Caroline Wilson, Chair of GAPMIL International Steering Committee, and also Mr. Elton Grizzle, UNESCO Program Specialist, to announce nominees of the Global Mill Week Award. So, please.
Good morning, everyone. I bring you greetings on behalf of the UNESCO-led Global Alliance for Partnerships on Media and Information Literacy. I'm Carolyn Wilson, and I'm the chair of the International Steering Committee for GAPMIL. These are exciting times for media and information literacy around the world, and evidence of this is going to be found in the work that you're about to hear about this morning. We can all be grateful to UNESCO for leading the charge for MIL, for Media and Information Literacy, and for making Global MIL Week possible. As part of Global MIL Week every year, we present awards to recipients whose work exemplifies excellence and innovation in the field. I am here along with Alton Grizzle from UNESCO to present the GAPMIL Global MIL Awards for 2018. We have 4 recipients for the awards this year, 2 individuals and 2 organizations.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome again to the Global Media and Information Literacy Week feature conference. This is the 3rd edition of the GAPMIL Global MIL Awards. Recognition motivates, stimulates, and translates experiences to others. Recognition creates new media and information literacy champions. UNESCO is pleased to be supporting this award. The first place prize for the Global MIL Awards goes to, and we need a drum, Miss Jane Talim and Miss Kathy Wing of Media Smarts in Canada. Ms. Jane Talim and Kathy Wing have been central in MIL in Canada since they joined Media Smarts in 1995, 23 years ago. They both served as co-executive directors from 2008 to 2018. During this time, they were responsible for the Young Canadians in a Wired World, one of the world's largest and longest running research projects on youth and the internet. They both served on advisory boards and national and international organizations to ensure that Canada remains connected to trends, programs, and research in the fields of media and information literacy around the world. MediaSmart was a world pioneer in creating and delivering educational resources, and today it maintains one of the world's largest libraries of lesson plans, educational games, briefs for teachers, etc. Under Jane and Kathy's leadership, MediaSmart has contributed to the adoption of media and information literacy in Canada by advising on curriculum and training teachers both personally and through the creation of self-directed professional development materials. And to accept the awards on behalf of Jane and Kathy, Carolyn Wilson will give us a 30-second response.
I'll do my best. I am honored to accept this award on behalf of my Canadian colleagues. Jane and Kathy sent this message, which I will share with you. They are deeply honored to receive the award, and to have their work recognized on their retirement is truly special. And they want everyone to know that if they could have managed it, they would absolutely have been here in person. The fact that this award comes from their community of peers, for whom they have so much respect and with whom they have worked to promote media and digital literacy, is incredibly meaningful to them and makes this award even more special. They are truly humbled. Our current environment and the challenge of the spread of information that is known to be false is the issue of our time. Now, more than ever, the importance of media and information literacy skills is critical. They urge everyone to continue their efforts. Although they have officially retired from MediaSmart, just retired in June, Jane and Kathy continue to believe in and hold this work that they love close to their hearts, and they will continue to be media and digital literacy champions in their future endeavors. So thank you very much on behalf of Jane and Kathy.
Now for the second place award. We have a tie for the second place award. This year, the Global MIL Award for the second place winners goes to the Jordan Media Institute of Jordan and Mr. Hemo Brunenberg from the Netherlands, who is with us today.
So some information, first of all, about the Jordan Media Institute, also known as JMI. In 2016, JMI, in partnership with UNESCO, launched a project to integrate MIL into Jordan schools and universities and raise awareness among the general public. JMI has also actively engaged decision makers in advocating for MIL and succeeded in including MIL in national strategies on youth and on combating extremism and violence at universities. In 2014, JMI launched its Media Credibility Monitor and Fact Check program, AKID, which aims to fight misinformation and help improve the performance of media in Jordan and support the right of citizens to accurate information. Through a partnership with UNESCO, JMI trained 74 teachers and professors and 390 students from 8 public schools and 2 universities. Some of the teachers and students have set up MIL clubs for students in grades 7 to 9. The JMI team drafted 6 documents that were based on UNESCO MIL literature, including a policy paper and a syllabus for schools and a textbook for universities. They also succeeded in encouraging the University Al Bayt to introduce an MIL course this fall. JMI also produced 9 videos to promote MIL among all sectors of society. Another 440 youth were trained on MIL across the country with the German Corporation for International Cooperation and the European Commission. Clearly, this has been one busy institute.
And for the second place winner, production is an important part of media and information literacy. And Mr. Hemo Brunenberg is here. Can we ask him to join us on the stage, please? Okay. And can we please ask Dr. Nagla Emari to join us on the stage? We'll be accepting on the behalf of JMI. Now for Mr. Brunenberg, he runs the Video Bakery. Yes, that sounds cool. The Video Bakery and the Ithaca International Transition Classes initiated a visual literacy project called Ithaca Film Festival. Over a 3-day period, students make their own film and from professional equipment from A to Z. 4 aspects of this project that makes it strong case for field at large and for replication. One is that it's based on extensive research and co-creation with students and school teachers. Secondly, it has become part of the school curriculum in a sustainable way. 3, the project is custom-made for a unique group of young people, young migrants, mainly refugees, who just arrived in Netherlands. And 4, the project starts from a media production perspective, learning by doing. In this way, young people not only work on media and information literacy skills, but they also work on other levels of social skills, such as empowerment and learning the Dutch language and culture, and therefore facilitating their integration in the Dutch society. The Ithaca Film Festival shows how Media and Information Literacy Project can contribute to the development of skills among a vulnerable group of young students, and how MIL can be integrated in secondary school education in a sustainable way. The project promotes tolerance and cultural equality for better representation in the Dutch society. Now for 30-second responses from both awardees.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm Hemmo Bruinenberg, and I'm from the Video Bakery, and I'm receiving this prize, but actually it's not my own project. It's a project I did with the Ithaca Internationale Schakelklasse, a transition school, mainly for Dutch language development. And I have a partner in crime there, Jan van Rossum, so I really want to mention him. I also really want to mention the youth, because I'm not really comfortable being on stage here. Normally I'm somewhere back there, and the videos of the youth are on screen, and they're performing here, and the whole hall is filled with now 700 migrants, and that's really something. It was last April. And we made beautiful videos. Something I want to say about this project is that it's mainly focused for these young migrants, at least, on doing something that is really fun. It's so much fun to make films, and it's so much a good way to work on social skills, media literacy skills, and I think that's something important that we have to remind, that media literacy is really serious, it's really important, but it's also really fun to work with. And I'm really honored and proud of the group of students and of the school. And also pleased to say that I just heard last week that we can make it into a national project. So it started out locally, and now we can make it national, and maybe from this even globally, if you want to work together or something. So thank you.
Hello, thank you very much for this awards. It means a lot for my colleagues in Jordan Media Institute. It's a big team, and I'm honored to be part of this team who worked very hard over 3 years now, trying to advocate MIL, not only in Jordan, but in the entire Arab world. And I think this is one of the regions in the world most needed. MIL is really most needed for so many reasons. So thank you very much. It means a lot for us. Thank you.
So now we're honored to present our final award, and this is the third winner, the third place winner for this year. The Global MIL Award in third place goes to the Autonomous University of Mexico State, Mexico, represented by Ms. Maria Luisa Zorrilla, and I understand that she'll be joining us via Skype, perhaps.
Perhaps. There's a problem with the connections.
We'll see who appears on the screen, we're not sure. But Alton is going to begin to describe some of their work for us.
As we have heard from many speakers, distinguished speakers in the opening session, universities have been champions of media and information literacy. And this university in Mexico, the Autonomous University of Mexico, is a public university. It's the biggest and most important in the state of Morelos, Mexico. It has over 40,000 students at the secondary, undergraduates, and postgraduate level. Through this initiative that was presented for this nomination, the university created a MOOC that is aimed to promote information literacy to fight fake news. The university used e-learning and ICTs not only for its own students and for educators, but also to meet the needs of society in Mexico and in the Spanish-speaking world. Since MOOCs are massively and open and online, they have the potential to reach very large and diverse and geographical audiences. For this specific MOOC, close to 2,800 participants registered and completed the MOOC. It has the potential for even further growth. Other MOOCs at the university have recorded participation of some 13,000 individuals.
This MOOC educates people to develop competencies as critical and reflective news consumers. It also aims to build civic competencies to promote harmonic interactions in social media. Its didactic design is innovative since the material is presented in two formats: academic reading material to cover the different topics, and interactive storytelling. All content is originally produced by the university, and this course is part of the university's digital cultural program.
There is a video from the representative. We'll try to find a way to play that perhaps in the openings, the first plenary, all right? I think we should do justice to the university. It's a 30-second video, so we'll play it at the beginning of the first plenary session. Thank you.
So this concludes our award presentations for 2018. And I would just like to say on behalf of GAPMIL that we do really feel that this kind of recognition, that this sharing of these global MIL awards is really an important part of our work, an important part of what the Alliance is all about. The Global Alliance for Partnerships on Media and Information Literacy exists as an alliance to bring people together across the world from all corners to share best practice, to celebrate achievements, to celebrate the work of new champions, as Alton mentioned earlier, and to really enable us to find inspiration in the work that we're all doing, and to enable us to have the resources and the ideas and support to help grow the field. So the awards are very important to us, not only to the International Steering Committee, but to our regional subchapters for GAPMIL that exist in every UN region of the world. So it's an important piece of our work. We received dozens of nominees this year, and we're very honored to be able to recognize and celebrate the work of the 4 award winners for the 3 prizes this year. We also invite you in the coming days and weeks to visit the GAPMIL UNESCO website, where we hope to be sharing more information about this year's award nominees and recipients, so that again we can continue the network and the celebration. So thank you very much for your attention, and we will continue with our proceedings now.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your wonderful announcements, and of course, once again, congratulations to nominees. And thank you, our guests. So now you may take your seats in the audience. But I also have a great privilege and honor to invite our key speaker, Professor Divina Frau Meigs from Sorbonne Nouvelle University. She is also co-chair of GAPMIL European subchapter. So, Professor, please come here for your speech, for your talk. So, Professor will deliver her keynote on information disorders, risks, and opportunities for MIL.
Hello, everybody. I'm very pleased to be here and to share with you this week of celebrations. And I'm glad that UNESCO and the UN is considering this MIL week officially, because, of course, at GAPMIL we started this innovation without permission a few years ago. And I think it's typical of how we, the MIL community in the world, work. We are constantly creating and trying new things, and we're hoping that the rest of the world catches up with us. Yes? Okay. So we were challenged, in fact, by the previous speakers about our mindset, how to think about the current world, how to think about the current challenges. And it's true that as a community, we are constantly on the brink of change, because we are in touch with young people. They're sending us very strong messages. We are in touch with our colleagues. They're sending us strong messages, not always the same ones. And we're constantly interfacing, constantly trying to understand, and constantly trying to clarify and explain. We meaning the research community that we are, which is also an activist community. And this is the way I'll be talking to you today with both hats. And I'm very touched to be here in the Baltic countries because I'm always astonished at how fierce they are about promoting democracy, and at the same time at how frail their perception of democracy is, and the need to keep fighting for it. And I think they're extremely courageous, and I hope to pay homage to them during this talk. And definitely, I'm very happy as an old champion of MIL, because I got an award 2 years ago with Bérangère Blondeau, who is somewhere in the room. I'm happy to welcome the new champions and the new chairs on MIL. We are spreading and having babies, and this is very much the spirit of our community. So welcome to Christina and Gunnar. You see, it's a lot of fun, and it's also crazy, like organizing an event like this one. So I hope we'll all survive it and meet next year somewhere else. To start about the challenges to our own mindset, we have to think about the change in our metaphors, in our representations of what we're dealing with and the phenomenon we're dealing with. And I decided to focus on the topic of the day, isn't it? Information disorders, in which there are several, not just one, and I hope you recognize the ones you are fighting for. But definitely, I want to really go with you and present to you proposals to think of MIL not just as a lifelong, but also as a life-wide practice and experience. This reaches out to every dimension of our life, and it means something different for schools and out-of-school environment. So yes, it's an environment, and I think we have to call it an ecosystem, because it's very self-contained, it's very complete, it creates new spaces, and it has changed drastically. Our first imaginary about the internet is this image of the surf, this fun, leisurely, new liberating tool that is the result of the incredible generosity of researchers, and the researchers in particular who never patented the net, so that it would remain open for us to interoperate with it. And as it started developing, and it's only about 30 years old, we've seen continents emerge, new continents that weren't here before. The blue continent, you recognize it. It has search engines, exploitation systems, navigators. It's an ecosystem that has been building on different steps, different amounts of bricks to create this space in which we navigate now, this blue continent. Blue, I haven't invented the colors. They are marketing colors, and blue, of course, is the color of fun, of safety, of freedom, especially in the American psyche, to which of which we're very dependent. No, nothing wrong meant for our American colleagues here. Thank God there was also an orange continent developing at the same time. Orange, like the color of this room. I'm very pleased that Lithuania has adopted orange. As the alternative color, I've adopted it too. I suggest we have a badge that is orange. The orange continent is actually even more fun than the blue one. It has a huge bestiary, plenty of animals, total liberation of the imagination, including animals that I'm not sure exist, but anyways. So it has, same thing, it has a whole way of organizing itself and surviving with social media, with software resources, etc. And it's open, which doesn't mean it's free, but it is an alternative. And we were very happy with this, weren't we? But from the surf, we've gone to the mine of data, the mine of data mining, the mine of having to deal with clouds. And that has produced its own continent, the black continent. Again, I haven't chosen the colors. It's a continent that also functions on its own. It has its private networks, it has its own markets and websites, it has its own software, it has its own search engines, etc. And if you try to get to this continent, normally you can't via the blue one, but sometimes you can. And with this black continent have come black problems, like surveillance by states in the name of cybersecurity, attacks to privacy or more privacy thanks to the black continent, cyber terrorism and hacktivism with sometimes good, sometimes bad types of hacks. Okay? Are you traveling in these continents with me? Yeah? Okay. It's nice because you can remain seated. And with this, of course, and with this whole ecosystem, have emerged information problems, information disorders. I'm going to zoom on only two for the sake of speed, but I'm sure you'll be able to plug in some more of your own. There's been disinformation in the blue continent. For instance, the American elections, the Pizzagate that involved Hillary Clinton, fake news asking people to go vote when it's in fact not possible. When concerning the Baltic countries, I couldn't miss that one, the fact that Contactor versus Facebook both have pushed for macro topics that are wedge topics, topics that polarize societies, like World War II, like the USSR, like the view of the West, like migrants, etc. And you can see that some issues that we thought had been solved in democracies, in particular the way we deal with religion, are being made, pushed back to bring what? To bring narratives of nostalgia, narratives of a past that was better than the present, narratives that don't accept that we have to help our young people project into their future. And so, thank God there is research that can show that can show the relative popularity, that can show how some social media can influence or try to influence these issues in real life. Fake news still, we have several forms of it. Some are very, very funny in terms of representation. Those of you who loved a cartoon called Pepe the Frog have seen it turn into a meme. And this meme first started with Trump, who actually adopted it during his campaign. And then it moved to France, always with issues that are wedge issues and polarize people. And of course, there's an army of trolls out there that are propagating, amplifying, being extremely creative about more fake news. And research shows that we respond a lot and that our first emotions are surprise, disgust, fear, and anger. These are the most important ones that are being touched because we remain humans and we are touched with our emotions, whichever continent we are on, and that show us how a true rumor is solved in about 2 hours. A fake one will have several span lives. And we have to know all about these things, which is where research helps mill. And then research keeps showing how, for instance, in France, if you look at, of course, this is a test on your eyesight, but if you look at the different media websites in France, you see that there is polarization working at the ends. And this issue of polarization is the one that is with us on the topic of fake news. You can read more about this, of course, but this is just to give you a flavor of how the blue continent is affected. The black continent affects us differently. It's via radicalization, with a suspicion that radicalization is done online and aims at young people. But when you go on Google Trends and just use the blue continent to figure out terrorism, you see that terrorism is present in many countries in the world, but radicalization seems to affect only the West. And so just having comparisons like that in a class can help stem a lot of discussion and can be interesting. This is from research we did for UNESCO with 2 of my colleagues, Gaida Hassan and Serafin Alava. We found some major themes, and we found that, again, the religious is back, the communitarian, politics attached to radicalization. We know that extremists are very early adopters of technologies. Good thing to know. They use it for the black capacities, encryption, anonymity. They use it for recruitment and propaganda, as well as training. And they managed to get on the blue continent. They also go on YouTube, Facebook, etc., to get hold of young people using high-quality production in traditional media and producing narratives, but very different narratives from the ones we know in the blue continent, narratives of victimhood, of war, and of belonging. But careful about the social media. Grooming takes place on the one-to-one private messaging rather than the major mass social media, and it's good to know, and it's good that we can show it via research. But the internet is a place where is a space of what we call facilitation. So it doesn't cause radicalization, but it creates an ecosystem for it. Echo chambers, anonymity, disinformation, social isolation are among the key levers that we have identified. So we conclude that there's no clear causal relationship between propaganda and radicalization, but that the internet is rather a facilitating environment, but also that social media cannot be treated separately from other factors, especially poverty and a feeling of unfairness among young people. And the conclusions converge. Whatever information disorder you look at, you basically reach the same conclusions. And here they are. We need critical engagement. We need digital mail. We need counter-narratives. We need new engagement models. And we need multi-stakeholder involvement. You recognize that in your different information disorders that you have to deal with? And this is the package I think we have to take with us. That's a mail package in a nutshell, if I may say so. But it's a package that creates risks for mail, and I'm going to be a little bit provocative here, just to make sure you're with me. And partly because these information disorders have brought to the world a new category of actors that wasn't there before, the fact-checkers and the activity of fact-checking, which already existed normally within the journalistic community, but has sort of taken an independent life of its own. And we see a lot of experiments, and one has been mentioned about Jordan. Sorry, I didn't put it here, but GMI, of course, is a contributor. And you see that there is a lot of even different forms, and crowd-checking. It can be done in schools. It can be done on traditional media. The rise of fact-checking is everywhere, and it's a good thing for fact-checking. I'm not so sure it's a good thing for mail. There are a lot of fact-checkers who are doing mail without knowing what mail is. But they use mail because they recognize that interest everywhere converges. Annie Hellman has mentioned the fact that fact-checking and media and information literacy are some of the two unexpected results of the report of the high-level group. Yes, and they are converging. It's a good thing because the more the merrier, and the more maybe the more efficient. And so there's been a lot of what I call sensible practices. The bad new games, Factabar in Finland, Info Hunter in France, lie detectors in Belgium and Germany, Mind over Media that we share between the US and the EU. A lot of global contributions and hopefully things that will keep expanding. But Compact, a research group in Europe, did research on fact-checking and has come up with a certain amount of elements of frailty in fact-checking that I'd like to underline with you, partly to help them as a community, partly to make sure that they recognize the strengths of mail community. If we're going to go into a complementary type of relationship where we buttress and help each other, I think we have to respect each other. And at the moment, I think there's a lot of non-communication or surface communication because of the emergency of the situation between the two. And I know there are fact-checkers in the room, so I hope at some point you'll protest. But anyways, so the Compact research says, looking at all the fact-checking groups, and some fact-checking groups are journalists, some are coming out of civil society from very different branches, and that's, again, within fact-checking, something they have to deal with. But definitely not very clear on the objective. The debunking of hoaxes is very context-dependent with a high focus on election, of course, because that's where a lot of the stress to democracy and the war on peace that is being conducted by some rogue actors is targeted. But as a result, what happens the rest of the time? And we're not constantly in elections. One type of content, mostly text, when we know that, especially for young people, it's visuals, it's YouTube, is the video sphere that is sending the messages. Surprisingly, low use of automated solutions, and so the risk of subjective evaluations of what is fake and what is not, and a lot of criticisms to the fact-checkers themselves about why they categorize such a newspaper or such a website one way or another. Evaluation, that's problematic. A lack of transparency in their funding and methodology, and as a result, maybe a problem of sustainability. How long can they survive as their first response moment is now passing, and they're going to need to establish themselves into the public sphere as one of the actors. So, problems with them. And there are digital solutions to the rescue, and that's something that we often forget, and that as male people we usually tend to integrate. We have solutions about hoax busting. In the classrooms we have journalists helping with their own devices, their own tools and apps. I recommend to you Invade, which is an application developed by a group of researchers that allows you to do forensics on images, and which is to say, recognize when an image has been touched up, falsified, etc., responding to this need for the image dimension. Same thing for Revi and Tinai and the Web of Trust. Because, of course, what these disinformation disorders do to us and to the community in general is they attack trust, and they are fear-mongering. And it's fear and trust that are at stake here as a community for us. The problem with the so-called good practices, and here I send you to a research by the Council of Europe, the European Observatory of the Audiovisual, is that they are very hard to evaluate. Good practices are self-nominated good practices. And they're very local. It's rare to see a good practice move to a national level, and as a result, there is this feeling mentioned by our colleague Hemo that we are reinventing the wheel and that it's difficult to go to a national level, though hopefully that's what should happen. But there's a risk also that good practices replace policy. Oh, do like these guys. But putting this into a policy framework is one of the issues with good practices. So don't get me wrong, I'm not against good practices. It's innovation without permission, and we in MAIL have been doing it forever. But how do we reach the step of the national policies, as was mentioned both by UNESCO and the Council of Europe? How do we break that glass ceiling of the mass practice that is needed if we want social justice in the schools? Social justice in society, everybody exposed to MAIL, and not the group of children, the group of teachers that are exposed to such and such a good practice. And so we have to be careful with good practices. We are all experimenting with them. How do we turn this into policy? How do we make them into a policy framework that is effective? For the moment, for me, is our next frontier, our next battle. We have a lot of wealth of practices, ideas, ingenuity, etc. We have to prove that they're good. And yet, evaluation of good practices is a thing that is hardly ever done, independent evaluation. We all self-report about our practices. Sometimes because we are honest people, we also report the problems. But people will generally tend to remember the advantages, the fact that the thing actually happened, that there is a sign for it. So careful with that. And the other big problem with good practices in my mind is that they never, ever, except a few exceptions, I'm sure you're in the room, are based on MAIL competences as defined by UNESCO or by Europe, or by associations. When you speak to the people who are practitioners in the field and who are putting together a MAIL good practice, they don't think in terms of competences. Or, let me rephrase this, they don't verbalize what they're doing as good practices. And when you don't verbalize, you basically don't know what you're doing. You're doing it, and learning by doing is great, but the reflexivity that we need to continue thinking about it, improving, transferring to others, in my opinion, is very important. And that's by putting on words on the experiences that we are doing and developing and integrating into programs. So I raise the alarm here on the competencies issue. It's been a great advantage to bring competencies into the schools that have long resisted. And at MIL, we have been developing sets of competencies. In Europe, we have the DG Comps, etc., etc. It doesn't matter if the sets are not unique, if they're evolving. They're evolving because we have an evolving field. But thinking in competencies is helpful to raise awareness and to keep this awareness, to see the progress as you move on. At the moment, we don't have that, and especially for information disorders, we don't have the competencies. So for instance, here you see critical thinking. Okay. Well, it's in intercultural dialogue that the Council of Europe has placed the competencies we need for information disorders. And this is not the foremost of the competences. So we're talking about something big, something potentially damaging to democracies. It is not the focus of most of the good practices analyzed. Just so that we take stock. But again, careful with good practices for all the reasons I mentioned. But all of these, including fact-checking, including good practices, etc., are also opportunities for MIL. And this is where I'd like to finish on a happy note, because it all converges on the representations. What universe are we in? What continents are we sailing? Explanations, solutions. And MIL is often the one that comes. As a result, MIL, as we knew it, has changed. And this is also what I would like to propose to your discussion. MIL is no longer just about that. It's not just about news. Even though information disorders have given back to journalism their nobility, and even though we are seeing at the moment a huge attack on journalism in the killing of journalism. MIL is also now about documents. You all have PowerPoints, you use Excel, you use Word, etc. Incredibly fast to build, incredibly easy to falsify, because they are digital. And by changing one number, you change the whole document. So we have to have literacy on documents. And of course, data are changing media, and media are changing data. So we have what I call three cultures of information in one, and they interact with each other. They are not ignoring each other anymore. Information disorders in particular make them coalesce together. And we have a situation where mass media and social media talk to each other. And information is also disinformation. The same tools of information are creating disinformation. So we have the pre-digital media. They're still very nicely online, and they've become digitalized, the press, TV, you can see it online, but we have web and YouTube. We have engaging storytelling with long narrative forms, and we have short narrative forms. We have audiences, and we have communities. And so there's a huge augmentation of MIL and of media we are invited, and we invite young people to look at. Here they are, media 1.0, media 2.0. But what we have to realize is that we have a huge ecosystem of information that can be turned into malinformation. This is the total sum of what we are supposed to look at. Here are the different kinds of information disorders. You have rumors, you have conspiracies, you have urban legends, etc. They attack both media, both types of media. The motivations are very important to look at and to be aware of. It can go from blackmail to activism to threats and destabilization of countries. The rhetoric is what we are supposed to be exerting our critical thinking about. It's a rhetoric of gates and revelations, of leaks and secrets, but it's a very dangerous play at vilifying values, at finding wedge issues, at criticizing institutions, because democracies rely on very strong institutions. The countries that have poor, fragile institutions are rife with non-democratic tendencies. And so we find ourselves having to create a kind of typology of what these information disorders are and the societal stakes behind. So I focus today on disinformation and radicalization. I could have gone to hate speech. I could have gone to different kinds of addictions. But it's all about being together in society in a democratic way. So it's about well-being. It's about privacy and data security. It's about citizenship and freedom of expression and protection of our minors. And the solution each time is MIL. And it compels us to augment our field of MIL. We used to be about protection and participation and about citizenship and creativity. And now, because of all these information disorders, because of the blue, black, and orange continent, we have to add privacy to protection. We have to add publication to participation and the consequences and the responsibilities of publishing online. We have to add all the different freedoms to creativity, because people are gagged. And we have to add the issue of governance and not just of governments to our repertoire of strategies about MIL. All of this to bring hope to young people. And that's why with the Council of Europe, and hopefully with European Union, and hopefully with all of you, we would like to attach MIL to a sort of holistic approach to what it is to be a citizen today. And it is about being a digital citizen. And this requires digital citizenship education. Some people call it global citizenship education. I don't care, as long as we mean the same thing. And what do we mean? We mean that competences, remember the importance of competences, have to be rich. They have to be sticky, as they say in the digital world. They have to be things that hang and that attach attention, that are engaging. And competences, we've made them look like a butterfly, just because we are very optimistic. And competences are about skills, and knowing about coding, but knowing, you see, about empathy, because we know that these wedge issues play on empathy, play on our cognitive weaknesses and emotions. It's about knowledge. There are things we have to transmit, and I have doubts about saying that we are going to transmit media and information literacy across a curriculum. At this point, it's become so big that we need to think it for itself. And I am militant about creating a discipline called media and information literacy in the schools at all levels, starting from K1. We have to start with the young ones. It's about attitudes, and it's about values. This is why I'm proud to be a UNESCO chair, because it's about attaching MIL to human rights values that happen to be just as young as MIL. We are about 50, 60 years old, internet, 60 years old, human rights, 60 years old. This is very new, very young. And I am concluding here, sending you to the report that we did for the European Commission, the agenda for MIL, digital MIL. I think we all agree that MIL has to add the word digital. Basic curriculum, stop saying it has to be transverse. It has to be evaluated, and in Europe we propose that PISA evaluates it, because if it's evaluated, then teachers can ask to be trained, partners. And the caveat I have is that at the moment, research that we're doing on MIL and on information disorders is mostly funded by the pure players. And I have questions about the independence of that and of those results. And independent funding of all the different actors in MIL, in the public sphere, is key. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Professor. We're very sorry we're a little bit behind of time, but thank you for your interesting talk, provocative ideas, as you said, and alarming messages. I don't know whether we have a time for another announcement, but very, very short one. So for that, I would like to invite again Caroline Wilson and Alexandra Bodekina to make a very short announcement.
So Alton was greeting me as I took the stage. Very short, so I will be brief. I'm taking the stage now, and you'll hear in a moment from another colleague, just to introduce you to something that you'll hear more about probably in the last session tomorrow, but we wanted to bring it to your attention now. And earlier this morning, as you know, I spoke about the GAPMIL community, the Global Alliance for Partnerships on Media and Information Literacy. And I wanted to bring to your attention now the fact that we will be holding elections for the International Steering Committee in 2019. So we look forward to having more participants join the International Steering Committee and join the representative groups that we have from the University Network, focusing on MILID, Media and Information Literacy and Intercultural Dialogue, as well as from the regional chapters. And I know that we have people from the regional chapters here and from the International Steering Committee. Maybe they could just very quickly stand up and wave. If anybody has any questions about Alexandra's there, maybe you can stand up quickly. A few other hands. Irene is down here in the front. She's being shy and not standing. There's Alexandre. Jagtar. We have a few, and Tessa's down here in front. So a few members of the steering committee with us. Please feel free to approach any of us to ask for information about the Global Alliance and certainly about the upcoming elections. We have one-page flyers, a one-page information pamphlet available for you in the next venue that you can pick up and have a look at. That will outline the positions that will be available on the International Steering Committee, and then the procedure that we're going to begin introducing. There will be an elections committee overseeing the process, as well as a nominations committee. So there's lots of work to be done, lots of room for new energy and new champions. So we invite you to be sure to pick up the one page of information, and we'll continue our discussion about this in the time that we're here over the next 2 days. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Alexandra, and it is an honor to share this stage with these amazing and respectful people. What I'm here to say today is that along with these celebrations of Media and Information Literacy Week, we have one more event, a virtual event going on right now all around the globe, if I may say this. Because we have now gathered participants from many countries across the globe of many different time zones to participate in an initiative which is called Global Media and Information Literacy Youth Hackathon. Can I have a show of hands of people who understand or know or heard of what is a hackathon? Great! This is amazing. I'm very happy to see that many hands up. So a hackathon is a timed event, usually 3 days, where participants make a team effort to solve a problem or a challenge. They brainstorm on solutions, then they validate it, they test, they figure out how those solutions will work. Then they prototype it, they visualize it, and then they pitch. And usually what those events are for for results. It's great when people come and talk and share ideas, but it's even better when they go out and do something about it later. And I'm happy to say that, and I'm very thankful to UNESCO to support this initiative and take those ideas forward into reality. What we want to see happening is people from different backgrounds, professional backgrounds, cultural backgrounds, come together by one table, virtual table, share their ideas on the problems or issues we're facing in media and information literacy right now that unite all of us, no matter what gender, what nationality we are, which origin we are. They unite us in one effort. And the opportunity is out there to come and join the process, a facilitated process, which takes you from a rough idea of what's going on with, for example, youth in media, into creating actionable solutions and taking them into reality. So I'm very inspired by this initiative. This is the first time we're doing this on such big scale, and we hope to get some really good results on Friday. That's when our teams are supposed to present their solutions. And then we'll reserve time to evaluate them and act upon them. I want to thank you very much, the partners who are helping me with this. The three universities, University of Tampere, University of Latvia, and this university where we're here today in Kaunas. Also Global Student Square. Beatrice, you're somewhere in this room, I know. I hope to see you soon. And my own organization, Designedly. We are bringing innovation to youth and uniting youth in co-creation. Thank you very much for your attention, and I will see you at Youth Forum on Friday.
Well, so with all these announcements, we conclude the opening ceremony. But before you will run to another session, I would like to say a few words and take a few more seconds. And on behalf of our university and personally me, I would like to say my sincere words of thank you, Auksė, Balčytienė, thank you, Christina, I don't know where you are, my dear colleagues, for their great initiatives, enthusiasm, dedication, involvement, efforts, sleepless nights for organizing such a great event. And I would like all of you to applaud them because of these great efforts. And the entire team of volunteer students who are around all these days and today. And of course, I have a special word to Mr. Alton Grisel because of his professionalism, his involvement since the very beginning of this conference. So his professional suggestions were very helpful. So thank you, Alton, a lot. And I would like to mention also our colleagues, long-term colleagues and partners, the University of Latvia in Riga, the co-organizers of this event. So I'm sure that the event in Riga will be very successful, so thank you. This is another part. And just another Lithuanian colleague, our great friend and supporter, Madame Asta Junevičienė, the General Secretary to Lithuanian National Commission. Thank you, Asta.